Hello, everyone. I'm Captain Logan, and look, it's Austin, the Day Ghost.
How's it going?
How you doing, man? Tonight it's the request and the Comic Vault. Welcome back to the Vast Anonymous Comic Vault, and thanks for patrons for requesting things. I never know what to do with the show, so when it's a comic, so I put request in the title, but I opened with the Vault logo because it's kind of both. Tonight's Vault request, whatever you like, was requested. It's all the same thing. We show up and we talk about a thing. It just happens to be something somebody else chose for us. Chewbacca's Lover, once again, asking us to do an arc from Garth Ennis's Punisher Max. This is the next arc after the last one he had us do a few months back. And remind me, that arc was called
Man of Stone.
Man of Stone. That's right. And I think this is maybe the fourth of these that I've had to do. So that would be
To my knowledge, yeah.
probably half his run, right?
Pretty close.
I've not read all of this. The only arcs of this I have read have been things that Chewbacca's Lover has asked me to do, and usually I don't love it when, and I'm kind of putting my foot down on this a little bit with some requesters. I don't usually love it when the requesters ask me to do a bunch of the same thing, just because, and I've said this before, but like there's often so many months in between because there's a backlog with how many requesters we have, and it's a good problem to have. I mean, I really, really appreciate our requesters for participating and supporting the channel and kind of making me spread my wings and do things that are outside of my comfort zone. It's wonderful. But I always kind of feel bad if I agree, and I've done this with a few people, agree to do a series of things because there's so many months in between. I don't remember what happens very well from one arc to the next or one chapter of whatever it is to the next. But this, I've been a little bit more okay with because they're as standalone as they are. And this one ends up being very much a culmination of, at least from what I've read, a lot of what came before this. It's a lot more about the continuity of everything we've had up until this point, and yet it still is a really good standalone kind of graphic novel sort of piece. Like, I do think you could read this in a vacuum, and I didn't feel like it was all that. There's extra layers if you don't, and of course, you'll appreciate what's done with some of the characters who come back, or some of the characters that are referenced and talked about that the Punisher has killed before you get to this, because that's what it's all about. It's I don't even want to say aftermath. It's like choices and consequences that the Punisher has made, where the past keeps coming back to haunt him. Because of people that he's killed, but I do. So, I'm glad that I've read some of what came before this because I do think I appreciated this story a lot more because of that. But I also think, like with everything else I've read from this, except for honestly maybe Man of Stone, I found this. I think this is a thing that really anybody that would appreciate this kind of thing could sit down and read in a vacuum.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The last time I fully read the series, because I read this entire series a few times, but the last time was 2017, I think. So it's not very fresh in my mind. And there's like certain things where I'm like, I know it's pulling from stuff, and I think it's from this arc, I think it's from that arc. Um, but obviously it's not super fresh, but it still plays either way.
Yeah, absolutely. It just kind of rewards you for having read what came before and paying attention,
Mhm.
and just shows that Garth Ennis, if he didn't have a plan, he fakes it really well and he builds really well on what he had before. So, like, there's a really good sense of continuity, which is only important in that it makes the whole thing feel more real and like a lived-in actual world. Like when they mention the like intestines wrapped around a tree, like I remember that moment because how could you not? It kept kind of refreshing my memory on things. And the
PTSD.
my favorite arc before this was up as of what I've read is up is down, black is white, and that of course comes up because that's the unless I'm conflating things, I think that's the Nikki Cavella arc.
Yes, I think so.
That whole thing, and then what was the other arc that I did? The other
I
one
think you did
that's
the Slavers, and
Slavers,
we did
yeah,
Man of Stone. Yeah.
and that of course also comes up in this quite a bit.
Mhm.
The human trafficking stuff.
Yeah. No, that in a lot of ways, this is kind of a like a sequel to that. We just from the Punisher side.
Yeah,
So that's really cool, especially because that's one of my favorite Punisher stories. So it's cool to see kind of some of that stuff brought back.
Yeah, Slavers and Widowmaker are the two names of arcs that I remember Vince and other Punisher fans kind of banding about back when I was reviewing New Comics a lot and when Jason Aaron's Punisher Max was coming out. And I never knew what they were and why they were important, but
Mhm.
they both sounded like really important seminal stories. And of course, it's all part of one big seminal run. But more and more, this is feeling like a real honest to god run of comics. Even
Mhm.
though it's a great TV show that was never made, right? And people say that all the time, that Punisher Max is just what the Netflix show should have been looking at and more or less adapting straight. And we can talk about that again. We can check back in with that idea because we talked about that some with Man of Stone. I think I'm agreeing with that a little bit more even after looking at this, just because this is such compelling storytelling, and it feels like what I want from a lot of TV, where it's kind of serialized and episodic simultaneously, and it finds the perfect blend between those formats. It also, like, I have to say, I'm finally in the place where I'm getting where people are coming from that say Frank Castle in the Netflix show is not actually the Punisher until like the final frame of the second season, and like I never really understood that before, and I'm not sure I ever want to go back to that show now. Because I like that first, like I think it's really slow, but like I like that first season. I like things about that second season, and now I'm like, oh no, I'm starting to appreciate and understand this character too well now, and I don't know if I ever want to go back to that material.
Well, with Netflix, it's weird because Daredevil in season two like really gets the Punisher. They really overcomplicate his backstory in a way that I don't like. Um, but like it feels like that character, and then it sets him up. But it's like, okay, now he's the Punisher, even though he basically already was. But it's like now we have everything. Go, and then the Punisher show is like, eh. And I like that show well enough. Like I don't think it's a good Punisher show. I think it's like fine as it is.
But I guess it's
But
more disappointing if they gave you something that felt like comic book and even maybe Garth Ennis Punisher in Daredevil, and then it feels like we're backtracking when we give him his own show.
no, it
It's not
absolutely
even a
is.
flashback show.
Yeah.
It happened.
No,
Everything happens after that.
no, exactly. And then every single Punisher thing in Netflix is always, well, he's the Punisher at the end of it. Like it's that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Um, and then when like both seasons for his show open with him being retired, and he's like, "Well, I'm not the Punisher anymore." And it's like I don't know why you would do that. I don't know. I feel like the people they got to do that show were very trepidatious of handling that character, and they just kind of went, like I don't know if people will, find him relatable or
So they're
likable or
tiptoeing
whatever.
around while
Mhm.
simultaneously trying to make it like dark enough to be authentic.
Yeah,
So like,
exactly.
look, this is a really rough show, but we can't it's almost like the world can be as rough and tumble as we want it to, but we can't let our protagonist go too far, even though he's the Punisher. He's arguably not even a hero. Like, all you have to do with the Punisher is let him have his, kind of messed up value system and stick to his rules, and let the audience decide for themselves if you can ever condone anything he does, which is what Ennis does.
Yeah, exactly. No, Ennis like really gets this character, and more than a lot of people like understands the types of people to throw the Punisher at. Like you have the thing in this book early on where there's the couple that are filming adult films with their children, and
That
like
was hard.
that's the type of thing where it's like, no, this is why the Punisher exists. Like, throw him at like that type of stuff, and
Yep.
that because that's when you go like, you know what I mean?
Garth Ennis makes, and I've said this before with this series, he makes a really good case for the Punisher's philosophy without coming out and condoning it. Like he does a really good job of kind of walking this tightrope of, the Punisher's philosophy is messed up. This isn't the way uh, we want to think people should handle horrible, unconscionable human beings. And yet, it's very earned cynicism. And that was kind of the big thing that I took from this arc, especially, is it really earns its bleak outlook that maybe the Punisher's answer isn't the right answer, but then the question is there one? We're never provided with another possible way to handle things. And from the Punisher's perspective, he doesn't like how the way he's treating people is affecting him and changing him either. He's getting this arc coming off of Man of Stone is partly about how he's gotten to a place where it's too easy to kill and to do what he does, but not just to kill. Because he's the Punisher, because it's not just about taking out the bad people, but punishing them, he's to a place where torture is too easy, and where maybe in some twisted way he even gets off on it. He's not like smiling and laughing and loving it, but he's not like Bullseye or anything. But he's seeing it as too necessary and too easy, and he in his own way kind of revels in it. And this was the first arc of this where I felt like there was a chance that by the end the Punisher would change in some minute way. Because he's, of course, a character that always refuses to change like Batman, but he's so much further in his vengeance quest than, even the darkest Batman usually gets, unless you're, certain versions of Miller. But beyond that, and when you get to the end of this, with everything that's thrown at him, like maybe he's creating monsters. Maybe there are people who are becoming too close to what he's like because of what he's done. Or on the other side, and I'll have Austin give us a synopsis of this in a minute. On the other side, maybe Punisher is creating a vicious cycle. Maybe he is doing the same thing that was done to him. So in killing people and taking like fathers and mothers away from their children and away from their families, does that make him any better than they are? And Ennis makes this fascinating case that if he's not, maybe it doesn't make him better, but what else is he supposed to do? It's fascinating. I completely buy it when we get to the end of this arc, and the Punisher says that he's going to just keep doing what he's doing, and he kind of doubles down, and it's like we'll talk about everything, but his response to what happens at the end of this, with everyone that has died and with all of the monsters that he seems to have made, is, well, if only I had killed those people sooner, none of this would have happened. It isn't, I shouldn't have done what I did now, it's, I wish I'd gotten there sooner. Like, he completely doubles down on it. Mm-hmm. After creating a female Punisher, after killing, mobsters whose widows are left behind, and they feel the same way that Punisher does about his family being taken away, he still thinks he did the right thing.
Mm-hmm. No, it's kind of in a way that Batman thing where, like, he wants to make it so that no kid has the experience that he did, and it's the Punisher seeing somebody have that and saying, okay, yeah, well, now I gotta make sure that I kill everybody, and that nobody will have that experience, you know what I mean?
And part of the reason
absolutely.
that I'm saying Ennis makes a surprisingly good case. Like, I'm hesitating because it's so weird to say that. I'm not condoning what Punisher does, but I'm saying that he's making an argument for the worldview where I can see how the protagonist got there. And this may be more than any other arc, I'm getting into the Punisher's head a little bit more. We're still distanced from him to some degree, but and actually, we do get in his head in several places where it's actually internal monologue with the Punisher. There are arcs that do quite a bit less of that, I think. And he, if he was killing people and then you were seeing how it was negatively affecting good people in those people's lives, then Punisher might start thinking twice about what he's doing. But he in this series somehow has kind of the Batman thing where Batman manages to never kill anyone when he says I'm not going to kill anyone. Punisher manages to never kill anyone he thinks doesn't deserve it, which just like with Batman, I have a really hard time buying he would be able to do that, but that's the heightened reality of this. Punisher never kills anyone that doesn't deserve it. There's no collateral damage that he didn't intend to cause, and it's always bad people in the collateral damage if there is any. And so the whole idea, and I think this is fascinating from the word go. The whole idea of okay, you killed these horrible people that maybe deserved it, but what about their wives? What about their husbands? I was glad that you brought up early and I've got the scene up here, and I don't want to look at this too long. I'm going to change it pretty soon. But the scene where, and like always, I had to be really careful to not pick too violent of pages and sexual of pages. But anyway, I mean, it's the least politically correct stuff you'll ever read. So if you're sensitive to anything, don't read this. But Punisher but he goes in and kills this couple who are forcing their very young children to be in pornographic movies. And it's not just a random scene where the Punisher kills people that deserve it. It's very related to the A story because the idea is the Punisher is not killing people where if they die, it's worse for the children. Like, he's making a case that it's always better. Like, do you really want these kids to be raised by these people?
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's that really good moment where he stops and he turns back, looks at the kids, and he's like, their young daughter is young enough that maybe, this will slip her head and she'll forget everything. But the two young boys, the damage is done. So, and he goes, in 20 years, I will probably see these kids again. And it fits into what the main story is about.
Yeah, and you find out that the wives who have had their husbands killed are in a lot of ways just as bad as their husbands because they're wrapped up in the mob family life, and because they created what we'll find is a female Punisher by the end. Because they killed her family, but because they forced her to have a family that was as twisted and horrible as it gets, and could transform a person into what the Punisher is in exactly the same way as taking away good family. That's a killer idea. I was really impressed with that.
Well, that's such a good issue cliffhanger, right? Where he's like, who are you? And she's like, yeah, you killed my family, but it's not, in a negative way like the main villains of the story. It's in a positive outlook.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and read this super chat from Chewbacca's Lover, which is really nice of him because he requested this and he's leaving a super chat. If I do the super chat, I don't get how you can do Heisenberg, Frank Underwood, and Dexter, but the Punisher character is really difficult for people to accept watered down.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know exactly. Well, even the Punisher show was handled by the guy that did. Oh my God! Now it's blanking me. It was right there. Then the second I got to the title, it slipped out.
And I just don't know.
Hannibal.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, which is also
but
not about a good guy.
All that suggests is mandate from on high.
Yeah, that's what it would have to be. I don't know. Jeff Loeb was in charge of the TV stuff. Who knows what's going on?
It suggests that Netflix and/or Marvel and/or Disney told them it's fine in the Daredevil show because he's an antagonist in that, but if he's going to have his own, he's still gotten to seem like a hero somehow, sort of, by the end.
Mm-hmm. Well, they were, I think, very trepidatious about stuff. Even when they were putting it out, I don't know how much you remember, but I think there was one SDCC where they were supposed to do a big panel for Punisher, and they were like, here's our show. And then there was a shooting at the time, and they went, no, cancel all that. Don't release the trailer. Postpone that. And it's like, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, you kind of just have to accept that your character is what it is and
or
move
just
forward.
not make it. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I mean, I
it's,
sympathize with how difficult it would be to get people on board with a show like that and not constantly have just like controversy in the news and stuff in an age where people are so sensitive about, gun use and gun violence, like in general.
mhm.
Where like your main character, because if you think about like the other characters that and this isn't me taking up for the choice. I think if you're gonna do it, you should just do it and let an audience make up its mind about how they feel about what the character is doing, because you're not inherently saying the Punisher is a hero and doing the right thing just because the show is about him, regardless, especially in introducing him as an antagonist in Daredevil, which was such a smart move, by the way. And I think the reason that a lot of people had confidence that that show would work, because he seemed like the Punisher in that show, but they introduced him as a villain, just like we did in the comics with Spider-Man.
Yeah. Well, and that's some of the stuff I really like about early Punisher is before he gets his own series, he just like bobs around from book to book, being an antagonist for characters like Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Captain America.
But like the other protagonists that Chewbacca's lover is mentioning are killers and like sometimes subtly, sometimes not so much. I don't want to break each one of them down, but they're not like constantly gun-toting.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Um, no, and then there's
I
a
mean, Walter
thing.
White uses guns.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah,
like Dexter uses any manner of instruments to kill people because he's a serial killer. I also think that show is easier to make in the day it came out than 10 years later, probably in certain
yeah,
ways. I don't know if I'm right about that, but
yeah. I'm not sure. But yeah, I think this series gets the Punisher stuff that I think you kind of have to in a way that that show didn't, which is you don't have to be relatable or like likable. You just have to be believable.
yeah.
You just have to believe that this person exists. If people don't like him, that's fine. Like,
Dictionary definition of sympathetic. He can't show
yeah,
up and be like this. We have to buy that he was a person and turned into what he is now, like arguably lesser of a person. He's lost some of his humanity, and we
yeah,
have to be able to tell stories about people like that because they
yeah.
exist. And if we don't do that, then we're leaving something out of human condition, and we're pretending like we're not mining for truth. If we never tell stories like that, we're pretending like people can't lose their humanity unless they're just like straight up evil people and are the bad guys of things, and that's a mistake.
Hmm. Well, and Daredevil itself managed to make the Punisher sympathetic while also being the Punisher, in that, you're kind of building up to what his backstory is as a like a twist per se in that show. Like you're following it from Daredevil's perspective, who doesn't know, and then when you finally like find out like what happened to his family, it's a very like emotional speech about the like of the Punisher talking about coming home, and he's like, I was too tired to hang out with my daughter that day or that night, and then the next morning we went out and my family was gunned down. Like
Yeah,
that's inherently sympathetic, but he's also still the Punisher.
it's just so weird that in his own show they're not allowed to really portray him that way. But anyway, let's get into this, shall we?
Yeah.
We're already 25 minutes in, but why don't you go ahead and give us a brief synopsis of what happens in this, and then we'll dissect it a little bit farther.
Okay, so Widowmaker is the story about five widows, all people who, as you said kind of before this, whose husbands were all killed by the Punisher in previous arcs, and they
Did
decide
we
they're
see
gonna.
each one of them, or do we introduce any new ones?
It's been so long since I've read this, I can't entirely remember. Like I feel like one of them is from Kitchen Irish, I think, and like different stuff, but I I can't remember entirely if there's any that are made up for this.
Like I remember the ones from the arcs I read, but I was just
Mhm.
wondering. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's just been so long for me. I can't entirely remember, but I think they all come from previous arcs. And basically, these five widows decide we're going to team up and we're going to take out the Punisher. We're going to figure out how he works and go from there.
We're gonna figure out why men have always failed
Yeah, exactly.
because we're gonna do our research.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna do some reading and put it
Except
all
for the one
together.
that can't read.
Yeah, except for her, but she's got other uses. Um,
Exactly. Everybody plays a part. There is
Definitely.
one of them doesn't get enough to do, and I need a second read before I even understood what her purpose in the plan was.
Mhm.
So that's one slight gripe I have against this, but
Yeah, like there's just too many, you think?
I don't think there's too many. There's just one that gets kind of lost in the background. It's I can't remember is her
Blonde
name.
one,
I should have
right?
written them all down. Is it Lorraine?
I think so. It's the other blonde one, right? The one that can read, but yeah, she doesn't really accomplish anything.
Well,
She's
and she
basically
and
just
she
there to
doesn't.
criticize the other ones.
Well, she kind of holds everybody together. Like she'll get people back on track. She would be. I imagine she would be the de facto leader if it weren't for Annabella, the older one, who just
Yeah,
this was her idea in the first place, and she's ultimately the worst of them.
yeah, exactly.
But she's the book smart one that like went to a prep
Yeah,
school and.
that's right.
She's kind of the opposite of Barbie in that way. I'll also throw this at it. So you've got a somewhat kind of bimbo airhead girl who's there to kind of sleep her way to information, and you named her Barbie.
Mhm.
This is the most obvious possible name, but I'm sure we've seen her before, and that was her name in the first place.
That was the 2000s. At least we didn't name her Bratz with a Z.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm interrupting your synopsis.
No, it's okay. Yeah, so these women are going to take out the Punisher, and meanwhile, there is another widow whose husband was also killed by the Punisher, who is trying to take them out because she is basically a female Punisher created by them. And then there's also a subplot of Samuel Jackson as a cop running around and dealing with like a shooting he was just in.
And he's there to be another character who is headed toward potentially becoming something like the Punisher,
Mhm.
and where he's starting to sympathize with the way the Punisher looks at the world, which is interesting because he doesn't like the Punisher. He doesn't want to be the Punisher, but he's asking, "Am I starting to turn into that?" I thought he was a really relatable and likable character, and yes, he just is Sam Jackson. And I didn't love the choice to just make him look like Sam Jackson because this is not too far uh, from Ultimate Spider-Man doing the same thing
Well, it's even weirder
with Nick
because
Fury, and Nick Fury is in this book in a couple of places, and
yeah,
I'm just like, look, folks, like I get that. I could see why in a movie version of this you might want to cast Sam Jackson or somebody like Sam Jackson, but like, there's other black men in the, you know what I mean?
it's
Like,
like 90s Marvel where they were like, oh, who should be Luke Cage in a movie? Wesley Snipes. Oh, who should be Black Panther in a movie? Wesley Snipes. Okay, we're making a Blade movie. Who should we cast? Oh, we cast Wesley Snipes.
is Sam Jackson just fine with people using his likeness without paying him for it? Because his likeness shows up in so many Marvel books, and it's like I don't think he's getting paid for this.
Well, it's especially weird because Ultimates uses Samuel L. Jackson at that point, while this uses like Jurassic Park or Die
I
Hard
was gonna say
3
that's a
Samuel L.
young Sam
Jackson.
Jackson.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's the strangest part about it is it's not even Samuel L. Jackson at that point in time. It's him like 20 years earlier.
So yeah, by the end, you have a woman who basically full on becomes a female version of the Punisher to the point where she puts on his T-shirt, and not a Punisher shirt, his shirt,
Mhm.
and goes and mows down the the other widows, and ultimately decides that she can't take what she's turned into, and I think it was probably her plan all along to commit suicide. She does that at the end, and then the cop who looks like Sam Jackson by the end, by contrast, has an opportunity for change to either go the Punisher direction or not, and he takes the opportunity to not do that. Goes back to his wife, who had told him earlier in the story, "You aren't anything like the Punisher," and he says, "No, I'm not." And so you have these two characters for contrast that one that is the Punisher, one that isn't. But by the end of it, the Punisher is the only person who still continues on that path. Now I have I have kind of a read on the end of this with the cop, where I don't know if killing the Punisher makes you the Punisher, but we can talk about that.
It's like some sort of mythical curse. If you kill the Punisher, you become the Punisher. It's like the Santa Claus with Tim Allen.
Well, right after Jenny has said, I am, we're the same. She says, deep down, we're twins, even.
Mhm.
But you're the only one that can handle the trauma, so I'm going to end my life now. This is, of course, just like the rest of the stuff, really bleak, really dark, really difficult to talk about on
Mhm.
our relatively wholesome YouTube channel. And just after that's happened, Punisher walks into the hallway at the end and sees the cop who is ready to just take the Punisher down, and he says, "Do you want to be me? Do you want to be the Punisher?" I'm just jumping ahead here in the panels, and again he decides not to kill the Punisher, but the thing is, and maybe I'm reading too much into this whole idea, but by Punisher's philosophy, killing the Punisher would not make you the Punisher,
Mhm.
because he wouldn't think he deserves to die because he's doing what needs to be done. So if somebody decided he was too bad, he needed to be taken down, they wouldn't understand the Punisher, and that makes them not the Punisher. Unless the idea is he's so guilt-ridden for not feeling it, and that's a whole thing between him and Jenny, like not being able to feel anything, not being able to feel human. It's why she keeps having sex with guys to just try to feel something, because of her backstory, which we've not talked about, but it's enough, but it's mortifying. That's the wrong word. It's horrifying. But they like he's starting to feel weird about just he doesn't feel anything. So maybe he's thinking the argument could be made that I should be put down. So if this cop does that, in a way he's me. But that was a question I had, was like, are you the Punisher if you kill the Punisher?
Yeah, I guess it's just that he's losing that part of himself that, is against like killing people, like, so it's just getting to a point where he's like, I don't know, getting comfortable with doing it in the same way the Punisher is.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's not like super deep.
that's a good point. Well, and maybe the wording is important. When he says, "Do you want to be me?" Does he mean, "Do you want to be the Punisher?" Or does he mean, "Do you want to lose your humanity like I have? Like I'm no longer Frank Castle. Do you want to not no longer be the guy you are?"
Yeah, and I think that's more so what he means. Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. No, that's the sense that I got, was more so just that he was losing himself in that way. And then that's kind of why he steps back and, goes back to his wife and he's like, you're right. Like, I'm not this person.
Yeah, and arguably he doesn't have the right sort of trauma to get him there, but if he had done that, I mean, it would be a different animal. But I also could have seen him going either direction in that moment. I like Again, Ennis is taking big risks and is not afraid of creating any sort of controversy or speaking his mind about anything in this book.
Nope, not at all.
So he goes, there's a case to be made that that high school kid needed to be put down.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, Austin's not feeling the best. I told him he
yeah, I'm
was
getting
welcome
over
to
a
take the
cold.
night off, but he wanted to come in and try to review.
I'm fine. I'll make it. Yeah, the fact that this book has like a school shooting thing in it is crazy, right?
Yeah.
Um, like it's so dark, but it doesn't feel like it's going too far either.
No,
At
because
least not to me.
it feels real, and it doesn't feel or real enough anyway. I mean, there's still a heightened component to this whole thing, of
Of
course,
course.
but the humanity or lack thereof in each scene rings true. So it doesn't feel gratuitous, and it
Mhm.
doesn't feel like it's glorifying any of the violence that is there.
Mhm.
So we're not supposed to be like rooting for the vulgarity or the violence or anything. So
Yeah.
so this cop decides unilaterally that he needs to take down this kid in a high school where he was not ordered to go in yet. And he goes, but these kids are going to die if I don't. So he takes matters into his own hands, acts something like a vigilante, doesn't feel like he's done anything wrong, and goes in and takes the kid out. And that's where he starts to think, maybe I'm turning into something like the Punisher because I made this choice without any sort of due process or with any sort of order from my superiors, but also because I said that's not a person anymore.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's what the
No,
Punisher does.
yeah, and it's interesting because it kind of plays on like movie cop cliches, but in a way where we actually stop and analyze it.
Yeah.
Because that's very much like, oh, the movie cop, like, you can't go in. I'm gonna do it anyways because I'm gonna, save the day. But we actually stop and talk about it.
Yeah, well, Ennis even, like, he attacks that head on, right? Like, he
Mhm.
knows that's going to be a criticism the reader is likely to have, where it's like, this is getting a little bit too, Hollywood. So he says, uh, the cop, I forget his name right off. The cop,
It's Budiansky because he's
that's right.
he's in Punisher Warzone.
Oh, is that who that is?
Yeah, he's
I've
the
only seen
guy
that
that
movie one
says,
time.
"You Krispy Kreme mother effers."
We'll get to super chats here in a minute, guys. Thanks so much.
Not Samuel L. Jackson though.
I did not remember that. He reminded me of a cross between, several characters, I guess, that Sam Jackson's played, but maybe in particular, I guess just like the way he talks and his attitude and stuff, like we're looking at Pulp Fiction, but like he's not that guy. Obviously, he's not that character.
Mhm.
But he reminded me more of the cop from The Crow,
Oh, okay. Um,
played by Ernie Hudson.
oh, I didn't even know Ernie Hudson was in that
Yeah,
movie.
that's Ernie Hudson's other big
That's really
movie.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's fantastic in that.
'cause I thought you were gonna say Lethal Weapon specifically, because there's one scene
I
where
had
he's in
that
the
thought a
bath
little
where I
bit
was like,
too.
"This is just Lethal Weapon."
Yeah, well, and also in that, like, this is a black cop with a stable family, and his wife and he get along, and so it does look a little bit like the situation that
Mhm.
Murtaugh, is it Murtaugh? Riggs is the other guy, right?
Yes, I've seen all those movies. It's been a while, and it's one of those
I
things where
always
it's
do
like,
this. Where I'm like,
which one's
which one is
which?
Riggs? Which one is Murtaugh? Yeah, but anyway.
It's like Bill and Ted.
But yeah,
Uh-oh.
he's looking at that a little bit too. But
Mhm.
anyway, I like this character a lot though, and I don't know if we see him again in this series, but I really wanted to. It's one of the things that made me actually think about reading on, which I have not really had before with this. Where these, let me say this real quick: each of the arcs that I've read of this. And I liked the Man in Stone, I think, less than the other two, but each of them I
Which makes sense
appreciated.
because of that like military
I
aesthetic.
always have that, yeah. Each of them, and also I didn't like that we killed off Catherine
Oh yeah, that's
because I
right.
love that character, and I was gonna mention this later, but I guess I'll say this real quick now and tack this in. I kept saying in the other reviews, I think, if memory serves, that Catherine was looking like a potential kind of female Punisher, and then she gets to a place where she's finally able to give up that life and doesn't know what to do with herself, which is what makes her not the Punisher. And Jenny in this. Is a really interesting character to contrast with her with, because immediately when she's introduced, I went, "Wait, we have another one of these." Like, you're gonna do another woman that might have the same kind of philosophy as the Punisher. The very arc after you just killed Catherine, that's not going to work, and it works wonderfully. It's fantastic. This is what I was gonna say is this is the first arc of these that made me not just say, okay, I appreciate this, but it's not my thing. Like, I immediately wanted to reread this, and I have not, and read on from it, and I've never had that with this. This was, for
Oh,
whatever reason,
interesting.
much more my bag drag than these ever have been. Some of it might be the like detective police procedural part of it, because I do enjoy that stuff. It made
And
me
it's,
want
well, it's
Sam and
interesting because
Twitch,
Punisher is
you know,
not as much in this.
but it's been like that with the other arcs too.
But I feel like he's in the other arcs more so than this. Like I feel like this is one where he takes more of a backseat,
Maybe it's
especially because
because
he
I
takes
have this
that
cop
one.
as something of an Eisen character, and that helps. But
Yeah,
also just the setup and the premise of it is so good. Like I wanted this movie. This is a movie I would rewatch. Like I think premise wise, this is my favorite of these arcs.
yeah. No, that makes sense quite
And
a bit.
I love how we don't waste any time getting into it either. They're like 3 pages in, the 5 women sit down and they go, okay, here's what we're doing. Like, this guy, this jerk face murdered our husbands. Here's our ideology. Here's our motivation. Here's how we feel about it. It's something of like an unreliable thing because for a second I'm not like on their side but understanding where they're coming from, and then I realize where it's like, well, I mean, Punisher just did to us what somebody did to him. How's that okay? And I'm like, well, yeah, that's a really good point you're making. And then we find out that that the 5 of them forced a woman to get into a terrible, insanely abusive relationship. Like abusive is an understatement.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
exactly.
they're just as bad as the people that he killed.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it's like 5 pages into the or 5 panels into this. You have
Yeah,
Angelica Houston walk out and be like, "It's simple. We kill the Punisher." But yeah, no, we waste no time getting straight into this, and then after that, it's just kind of dealing with everything. There's not a lot of build up, like unnecessary build up.
no, it's really well paced. It's super tight, and like all of these arcs are pretty tight. I think the way this is told, it's the best arc that I've read,
Yeah,
and it's the one that I feel like
definitely one of them.
is most of the ones I've read, like movie worthy or TV season worthy, and that's the main thing that folks in the comments have been talking about. And we were talking a lot about that Punisher show, so I don't want to get back into the actual show they made too much, but I do think we should talk about that for a second. Because before we started broadcasting, Austin, you suggested that while this would be, and I mean it's so cinematic the way just the way it is, uh, like as is, where you could just take this as storyboards off the page and get a wonderful film, or maybe even spread it out a little bit and make it a miniseries or something. But you suggested a reason that it would be difficult to get away with that.
With this arc specifically, yeah. No, my thing with it, and I mean, it's easy to go like, oh, Punisher Max, like just adapt that, because there is, I think, with a lot of Punisher fans, just kind of like a telescope onto the series, specifically. But it's like, it's kind of a weird thing where Punisher Max is your like 50 to 60-year-old Punisher. Like it's more of like a Dark Knight Returns thing. While with the Punisher show, for example, you're starting with like an earlier Punisher, and especially with Widowmaker specifically, um, you don't have like the build up to it. Like it's weird to do early, I think. Um, you know what I mean? Like you need like a bigger foundation, I think, to get to this specifically. There's certain things from Max that you can definitely do. Like I think you can do. They should have done the Slavers season 2, honestly.
And we've talked about
Um,
that, yeah.
yeah. When they, I remember them talking about it like it was going to be that, and then it wasn't really. Outside of like a similar kind of start with this girl kind of bringing him into this thing, and and they could have done Barracuda, stuff like that. But there's also a lot of earlier Punisher stuff that I wanted them to adapt that they didn't, which the Daredevil show does. Like the Daredevil show, while doing Daredevil stuff, is also very much looking at like early Punisher miniseries stuff. Like
I didn't realize that.
you have like the whole arc where he goes to prison in that show, which is reminiscent to that.
Well, and
And
is Turk just a Punisher character in the first place, or does he start as a Daredevil thing?
I think he starts as a Daredevil
Okay.
character. Well, and I always said he was their Thanos because Turk is Stiltman, and the Daredevil show in every Gladiator scene always it's like, it starts off, you have the Stiltman legs, and the next time you see him, it's like Stiltman legs and a body, and so forth. I was like, he was their Thanos. They're building up to him, but
So is the reason
yeah,
you're saying it's hard to do this story early just because you have to do enough stories where like the Punisher has to be around long enough where
yeah,
he's
I
taken
think
out a
there's
lot of
some of
people,
that.
or does he need to be old enough that you buy that he's experienced enough to do everything he's doing?
Yeah, I think like a bit of both of that. It's kind of like how the DCU starts with Dark Knight Returns Batman. Um, and the Netflix show obviously doesn't start with a Punisher that's that old. Um, but it is just kind of like I don't know, like it's just weird to me to do more of like this, where it's like this more experienced and more world weary Punisher. And especially a lot of the arcs are based around him being that. Like the first arc, for example, deals with Microchip, who he and like the two of them have had like a whole past that is like a whole era of comics basically. And not that we did much with Microchip in the show, anyways, but
Yeah. But if you could do like an HBO show or a Showtime show, I don't want to say network because of course that wouldn't
no, something
happen,
like that makes more sense.
then
It's
you
like,
could then
mhm.
this could be your season like 7 or something.
Well, and
If you could
if
keep
you
it
were
on
to
a
just
long time.
yeah, and if you were to just do a show and it's like adapting just this, I think that's fine too. It's more so that weird. I know it's like a muddy ground there, but that like weird MCU thing where it's also got to be attached to this whole thing. So you can't just have like Punisher Max just dropped in the middle of it because he's got to start as like early Punisher because we're just dropping him into this
I
universe.
also don't know that there's any reason that Punisher in that show couldn't have in the first place been older.
Hmm.
If you'd wanted to do if you'd
Yeah.
wanted most of your adaptation to be from this stuff, but you'd have to think so far ahead. When they put him in Daredevil, they're not thinking he's going to get a spin-off necessarily.
Mhm.
And also, they're probably just looking at different actors and trying to pick the right guy. Because I think, indisputably, Bernthal is probably the right guy. But that's not
Yeah.
to say that there's not some, at that point, 45, 50-year-old guy that could have played him.
Well, in Punisher, I
I don't
feel
know how
like
old Bernthal was when he started. He's probably pushing that now.
yeah. No, most likely. Um,
I
no,
also
Punisher,
think you
I
could
think in
get
a
some of
way.
this later, by the way, if
Yeah.
they're crazy enough to do more Punisher later. I mean, I don't know that there's any reason to expect that Disney would actually do that, but we have to see what their Born Again series looks like before we have any clue as to how dark and rough and tumble they'll go.
Well, and if Punisher gets a reboot show like Daredevil Born Again, it's 100% going to be called Punisher Max, right?
I would think so, yeah. Unless it's Punisher War Journal, I could see them doing
It
that.
could be War Journal, yeah. But no, with Bernthal, like I feel like Punisher is like one of the best adapted comic book characters in a way, in that um, I really like Thomas Jane, Ray Stevenson, and Frank Bernthal. I think they're
Even
all
just for
three of the
casting,
just
yeah.
for casting, yeah. Not exactly for actual adaptation, but
He's
casting
ignoring Dolph
wise.
Lundgren completely.
I think I've seen that like once, like a long time ago, so I don't remember it super well.
It's
But I
still
don't know.
better. It's better than it has any right to be, but Lundgren doesn't get in the way of what works about that movie.
The only thing I remember is that there's like weird like geisha women that like frightened me when I was younger.
Yep,
That's all I remember, but I'm sure he's fine.
that happens. But anyway, no, what I would love to see if, forgetting, MCU and how Punisher's been handled in the past on screen and stuff, would either be a like 3 or 4 seasons of television where whether they're miniseries, however long they are, whatever, where you do exactly what this does, where you get several stories about Punisher taking down different gangsters and evil CEOs and whoever, right? And then eventually, you do an arc like this where you have a bunch of widows that get together, because I just think it would be it would be really neat to build to a thing like this, and an audience that
Yeah,
hasn't read this not knowing you were doing that, and not make those major important characters before we get there. Uh, it could be
yeah,
really neat.
yeah. No, exactly. Like that would be a really cool thing to do. Like several seasons down the line, we are like, okay, like can you believe like the villain from this season, like his wife showed up again,
Yeah.
like from this season, and you can just kind of like pick and choose, and then you do like a season of that. Um, yeah, no, exactly.
So I had a really bizarre thought.
And don't make it 13 episodes because Punisher stories cannot be stretched out to 13 hours. He just walks into a room and guns everyone down.
If it's gonna be 13 hours, it's gotta be vignette. You got to
No,
do
it's
it in
got to be like
3 episode
arcs.
stories. Yeah, do them in arcs,
Yeah,
and that you can do. And again, because that would be this.
yeah,
That would be
yeah,
exactly what
exactly.
this is.
Exactly. Do it Batman 66 style, two-part episodes, and he gets into a death trap in the first part for each one.
And don't kill off Catherine too early.
Yeah, exactly.
So I had a bizarre thought, and I wouldn't have had this obviously if it weren't for the rewind I did this week. And I don't think I'm stretching when I say this. Just it came to me, and I want to bring it up because it's weird. But you watched the Lone Ranger movie. The 2013 movie that I did the rewind on this week, so you'll know what I'm talking about, Austin, even if nobody else does. In a really strange, twisted way, Jenny in this is a Punisher version of the Lone Ranger. There are 6 widows, just like there are 6 rangers. And she fakes her death.
Yeah.
And you have these other widows. It's almost a weird reverse thing because they don't die. Like she kills them later. That's the big difference. Is that in Lone Ranger the Rangers all die, and then this guy becomes the Lone Ranger, and like he's faked his death. But you have this 6th one that is apart from the other ones and fakes her death and then comes back to murder them. It's like a twisted version of the Lone Ranger.
That's really funny.
If
I
like
hadn't
the
had that thought.
Rangers had a conspiracy to get him killed, instead of Collins, it's all of them.
Which is funny because I didn't have that thought, but at one point while reading this, I did listen to the big, uh, like the track from the climax of that movie, the like William Tell
That's what I was
Zimmer
doing.
track.
Yeah.
What? Sorry, you cut out.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just saying. I did the same thing today. I was also listening to that because it's awesome.
I guess another weird, funny music thing. I also read this while reading or while listening to the Punisher, like the '04, like the Thomas Jane movie soundtrack.
Hmm.
And when I got to the last issue, I hit the last track and it just kind of played over and over, and it was that weird opera scene.
I knew you were going to
So
say that. Yeah.
for the entire like final issue of this, I was listening to that opera music just on loop.
See,
Very weird.
I wouldn't be able to deal with that because all I would have is that moment in that movie that's burned in my skull with like stapling people, and like I can't have that. That bothers me.
Oh yeah,
Ugh. It's one of the only things I remember from that movie. Philip Kelton put in a $20 or 20 Mexican pesos super chat a while back, and I don't know what he's talking about because we're so far past it now. But he says he is getting paid now, and I'm not sure what he was referring to. Do you have any idea?
I think it's because Angelica Houston is like, okay, we're gonna kill the Punisher, and then the other women say, "How much do you want?" And then she goes, "Half."
Oh.
I don't know.
It's probably not that. Philip, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what you were talking about there, but feel free to give us a regular comment and clarify. Bob the Hunt, $5 super chat. Thank you very much. The Max series models a lot of characters on actors. Frank is supposed to be Clint Eastwood. Oh, I didn't know that. We also get a Christopher Walken-based gangster in an arc.
I don't remember Walken being in that. The only two I had this arc were, like I said, Samuel L. Jackson, obviously, and then I also thought Annabella looked like Angelica Houston.
Yeah, now that you say that, I can see it, but I didn't have that thought before.
But it's not like as one for one as Sam Jackson. It was just kind of like like if this were made into a movie at the time, that's possibly who that would be.
Real quick, before we do the other super chats, and I don't know how we're already almost at an hour. I feel like we've been talking about this for 15 minutes. Can we talk for a second about the Angelica character? Um, we haven't.
Annabella.
Say again.
Is it
The
Annabella?
Annabella, not Angelica. When you said Angelica,
I've swapped you out.
now I've been completely thrown. Yeah, the Annabella character. So I really like what this comic arc has to say about the way the Punisher views family and the way the mob views the idea of family. The more like gangster stuff that I've looked at in more recent years, the more the mob in particular, just like big, I don't know, the old New York mob and things like that, feel like cults to me. Where like we use the word family, but what we really mean is you've been forced into an organization that you're never allowed to leave, and it's the organization that matters. And so, one of the more twisted ideas in this, and I really like the way it's handled, is Annabella keeps saying over and over again, and this is, by the way, the whole reason that uh, we're actually able to have an argument from the Punisher that killing these women's husbands is not the same thing as his family dying, because he had a real family, and when they died, it broke him. And these people did not have a real family, and the one who did, whose sister was ostensibly murdered, her her sister was taken from her under the guise of it's all about family, and it was her sister. That's her actual family. So Annabella keeps saying it's about family, but it isn't at all. And that's why the Punisher has an argument. And I just thought it was very important that we said that before that I said that before we finished the video, because that's kind of the crux of it, and it's the reason that Jenny is such a fascinating a alternate Punisher, female Punisher, that she's created by this opposite twisted idea of family, and that it's not her family getting killed that makes her that, but her being forced into a non-family.
Yeah, no, she's essentially sacrificed for the betterment of the crime organization that her sister is married into. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Just kind of breaking it down in that, yeah, like it's not like a real family where this was like a loving, each of these people had, real loving relationships. It's, in the way that the Punisher did. They're all just kind of crummy people that are doing what they can to help themselves do better with their criminal shenanigans.
And they're as sympathetic as they need to be. Some of them kind of more so than others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure.
It is kind of sad when Bonnie gets killed. Like, I didn't want that character to die.
I don't know, I'm a Punisher fan. I'm like, if everybody doesn't die by the end of this, I'm gonna complain.
But I just mean in the moment,
Yeah, no, of course.
She didn't want to be bait. She was kind of forced into that, and she does what she's asked to do. She does a good job. She gets the Punisher, which is not an easy feat. She gets the Punisher to go into a trap where they have a really good chance of killing him. And then, of course, she screws it up by, I guess at this point she becomes a lot less sympathetic, because I forgot about this part where she just starts beating the crap out of the Punisher. And,
but she's also not sympathetic because she talks like a Looney Tunes character.
Oh, that's true too. That was very distracting. But I guess it was. Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I wanted to talk about that too. Where Ennis is doing everything he can to give these characters personality quirks and different ways of acting and speaking, so you can tell them apart, and so that they're not all the same character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not a big fan of that kind of phonetic speak most of the time, but I get why you did it.
Yeah, when overdone, it can be really annoying, I find. But with that character specifically, like they basically sacrifice her in the same way, or not exactly the same way, as they do Jenny, though, where they're
Yeah.
like, okay, you're gonna go off to do this because this is what we need you to do, and that's what leads to her death or traumatization. Uh,
And to be fair, they
Jenny,
would only sacrifice her if they had to, but
Mhm.
Annabella doesn't really care that much if she lives or dies. And
Yeah,
ultimately, that's the same thing with Jenny and any of these women. It's just whatever the organization needs, that's what we do. So it is Bonnie's fault to some degree that she gets killed, because if only she had left well enough alone. This is actually the one place in the 4 arcs I've read of this where the Punisher was screwed. He should have died. Like, he really shouldn't have
yeah,
made it out of that. And the only reason he does is because Bonnie is nuts and just starts beating the crap out of him. And
Mhm.
but Annabelle at the end of the previous arc, and you're right, really good cliffhangers with this.
Yeah,
In the end of the previous issue, I should say, Annabella says, like, or maybe it's the beginning of this one, I can't remember, but she says, like, be sure, be careful not to hit Bonnie, if you can, but like, it's not that big of a deal if you do, and that's messed
yeah.
up.
And the second things go sideways, she's like, shoot them anyways. Like
Shoot
even
all
if
of them,
you hit
kill
her, yeah,
everybody there.
kill everybody. Exactly.
Yep, it's your no honor among thieves kind of thing.
Hmm. Yeah, no, and it's, how far they're willing to go in the same way that, the Punisher, at least the way he talks about it, where only the people that need to die will die. Uh,
Yeah.
so in the reverse situation, he would not just open fire if there was somebody that wasn't a criminal was with them.
Which by contrast makes him look a lot more human than them,
Yeah,
because
even
he
though
has
he
an actual
lost
code.
it. Yeah.
I still don't buy that he gets away with not accidentally killing innocent people all the time.
Hmm.
Maybe Ennis
Yeah.
deals with that somewhere and I don't remember it, or I haven't read it yet.
No,
I
Punisher blows up buildings, and there's a little like box on the side that says "No innocent
zero
casualties,
casualties.
zero unearned
Oh, there
casualties."
you go. Um, so the only reason I thought of this just now is because we were talking about cliffhangers,
Mhm.
but and I'm not going to show the page because because it has nudity and stuff, so I can't do it. But the end of, is it the first issue where we have the revelation? And I like, by the way, Ennis's choice of when to reveal things and when not to, because you get intrigued by a thing, you're like, okay, I don't know why this is happening, but I trust that I'll get an explanation later. So now I'm reading on, not confused, but just I can't wait to find out more. He does a really good job of telegraphing when he means for you to know things and when you don't. I hate reading stories where I'm like, wait, did I miss something? And I never have that with him, almost never. But anyway, the end of, I think the first issue is the revelation that Jenny has had surgery and her breast removed because she had breast surgery.
Mhm. Yeah, she had breast cancer.
Because she had breast cancer, pardon me. And again, weird things to have to talk about the channel, but that's what happens in this. And
Yeah, when it's like a very real thing. Like I've
of
met
course,
people that have had that. Yeah.
they say the name of it, and yeah, usually, I mean, she must have had a really extreme advanced form of it, because I think usually when women get breast cancer and they have to remove a breast, it's just one. But I guess it can that happens too, right? Where like it'll
Mhm.
go into both, and
Yeah. Yeah, I think it just depends on how it's spread.
so that was pretty messed up. But the only reason I'm bringing that up right now is to say, um, I'm going to use a phrase I've never used before. I came up with this while I was reading this, which is vulgar foreshadowing. There are two places in this where there's really, and I don't know if either of them are intentional, and I'm trying to figure out how exactly I'm going to articulate it on without it seeming like an after dark. But there are two places where there are lines of vulgar foreshadowing, and one of them is very early on in the first issue. One of the widows makes a crack about Bambi, or I think it's Bambi, or one of the other women's like breast implants, and
Oh yeah.
says something about like if you're not careful, like I'll pop one of them or
Yeah, it's
something.
Shauna when she like pulls the razor out of her mouth and cuts Barbie's necklace off.
That's what it is, yeah. And she's like, I
It's
could
one of
have
those things
gone
that makes my skin crawl.
same
Whenever
here.
somebody just like pulls out a razor, it's weird because I'm not normally like that.
I
But
could have gone for your breast implants, but I didn't do that. And then at the end of the issue, we have a woman who's had that surgery. Is that intentional foreshadowing?
it could be. Yeah.
I don't know. I on a second read that jumped out on me, or that jumped out at me. The other thing that was weird is the cop makes I don't even want to say a joke, but he says something to his wife about like I can't remember who it is, but he's talking about somebody horrible, and he says something about like somebody's kidneys dropping out, and then
Hmm.
his wife gets shot and goes and gets surgery and loses one of her kidneys.
Yeah, well, I think specifically he's talking about is it her boss? I think it's like the two of them relating about how
That's
they
right.
don't like how the other who the other works for.
Yep.
And I think it's her boss where he's like, I would beat him till his kidneys fell out.
That's right. That's what it was.
Hmm. And of course she's a nurse, so
That one seems like it must be intentional.
yeah, no, that's got to be. No, that one jumped out to me too. I didn't think about the breast implant one, but I did think about the kidney one while reading it.
But yeah, I just want to mention that because that was kind of interesting. Um, there's something else I wanted to say about
Well, I think the lesson
Jenny and all of that. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
I think the lesson is that evil women have breast implants and good women have had their breasts removed.
Oh, is that what it's getting at?
I think that's the lesson. Yeah.
I'm not sure that anyone else in literature has ever tried to make that point.
No, I think there's a Shakespeare play about that.
Oh, okay, okay. Which one?
The Tempest. There's a part where he says, "Thou shalt have thy breast
Okay,
removed."
okay, okay. All right, all right. Chewbacca's Lover, $5 super chat. The Max comics are the only Garth Ennis comics I like. I've disliked everything else I read by him. Even his 616 Punisher is nothing like this. It's not remotely as thoughtful and really juvenile. And I've heard that from a lot of people.
Yeah, I haven't read like a ton of Ennis stuff outside of this. I don't know where you count Welcome Back, Frank. That's like a weird gray area book, so I don't know if he's including that, but that's a book I like a lot, and that's like the place where everybody that adapts Punisher is kind of looking at.
Yeah.
Um, and it's got some crazier stuff, like he punches out a polar bear in that book. So I don't know, but I like that book.
After a
I've
while, when you've done all the realism, you go, I just got to do something insane because I'm getting bored now.
Yeah,
I don't know
no,
how anybody writes a book like
Villain of
this on a
that's
month-to-month
amazing.
basis. Like that's a thought I had reading this arc specifically, where I'm like, well, we're 43 issues in when this starts, and it's also just impressive that it's that good, 43 issues in, and like is the best arc I've read, and I don't know, like I feel like I would swallow my own soul at some point.
Hmm. Well, and a lot of like the big important stuff that I feel like everybody loves kind of comes like boom, 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 where you
It's
have
true.
Up is Down, the Slavers, Barracuda, and then um, I don't think Man of Stone is as high as those, but then you have this right after it, so you kind of have four of the big major arcs that people love almost like around the same time.
It's like a band that hits its stride at its third album and then just keeps
Hmm.
pumping out great albums after that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Chewbacca's Lover, I'll get to your other super chat in a minute, but I want to make sure that I make this point real quick, which is going back to Jenny and the uh, and breast cancer and stuff, because we haven't talked about what exactly her tragic background is, and I was really impressed with how much I bought that and how much it bothered me. Like, I found myself really slowing down my reading when I got to the flashback there, and that's really unusual for me because usually I get to backstory and I have a hard time sometimes not glazing over or forgetting what happens with it because it's not in scene, and that stuff was really compelling all on its own. And I think part of it was I was already really intrigued by this character, so I wanted to know how she got to where she was,
Yeah.
and and like why it was so important to her to take out the other widows, and just it's such a cool premise in the first place that you have these five widows that think that the Punisher needs to die, and then a sixth widow that worships the ground the Punisher walks on because he killed her husband. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
need to know why you're so happy. Like she says, I'm your biggest fan. Why are you so happy that he killed your husband? Oh, because your husband was a rabid dog that needed to be put down. And uh, we can.
Yeah, no, it's that thing. Like I said,
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Ennis knows who to throw this character at. Like he knows how to write Punisher villains. But sorry, go ahead with what you were saying.
Oh no, you're fine. I had these layered like million and one point ideas, and then I'm like, oh, that's right, I have a co-host. I should probably let him talk some. Sorry about that. But anyway, so I'll break this down just real briefly, in case there's any of this we want to deal with. We won't broadcast too much longer, but we're already well past an hour. But there is quite a lot here, and I liked it, and I'm having a hard time not wanting to continue talking about it because there's a lot of meat on the bone here. But well, you know what? You're synopsis guy, Austin. Why don't you tell us what happens with Jenny's backstory and how horrible her husband was?
Okay, yeah. So Jenny's backstory is the ultimate sad backstory. Her sister basically offers her up on a plate to this mobster guy that ends up kind of treating her nicely at first, and then they get married, and then he immediately like flips like that, and is just very abusive to her. And then she gets breast cancer, and because she's named Jenny, I assume she went like, "I got it, I got
No,
it."
no! Don't make a joke out of that. No,
Anyways,
I shouldn't have let you do that synopsis. Why did I do that?
I thought of it in the moment. You kept saying Jenny. I was like, gotta work that in. Um, and then the Punisher kills her husband, and then there's a point where she kind of, I don't know, is it before or is it after her husband dies? It's after, I
Her
think.
husband dies, and she is still in the family, and I think dates some other guys and
Mhm.
stuff, and she's not able to feel anything. And then at some point, she just kind of loses her mind and is like, on the family, and wants to kind of rat them out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. As I was talking, it started to get muddled in my mind where I was like, I can't remember the exact timeline, but that's right. Um, so she kind of comes out to her sister like, "Oh, I'm going to go to the FBI. We're going to figure this out." And then Shauna, one of the other widows, like bashes her over the head with a bottle.
Yeah, and goes to town on her, uh, you know, abusively in the same way her husband did.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And
Almost
that's where
condoning
they.
that whole thing, and
Mhm.
he does it because something is broken in him, and he just enjoys uh, like brutalizing women and raping women, and even he with his background with the family. You can kind of see how he got there. Like, this breaks people. It turns them into something less than human.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he kind of attacks her out of like a primal like rage, I guess,
Yeah.
while the other soon to be widows kind of go, "Oh, well, we can't let this woman destroy our family."
Yeah,
So
self
we're just
preservation.
exactly. So we're gonna take her out, and it's believed for a long time, like for a decade, I think they say, that Shauna killed Jenny, but
Yep.
really she hired two people to do it, and
And
they
she
did
even
not do it.
uses it as a way to intimidate people.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. She brags a lot about how she's the one widow that like gets things done.
Yeah, and it was actually this guy who she was sleeping with, who is like terrible at everything and is kind of a loser,
Mhm.
and like went to kill her and dropped her off a bridge and left, and the setup for why he felt like he had to drop her off a bridge is good, but he thinks that you know she must be dead because there was a train there, and we're not really told how she survived it, but she just survived it.
Well, I think it's because he drops her off with the intention that she'll land on the tracks and the train will hit her, but she lands into a one of the cars instead,
Do they
which I
do they
guess,
show that implicitly?
yeah,
Oh, okay, or
yeah. There's a shot
explicitly?
where she's like
What's the word I
in,
want
I
there?
don't know, like sand or something, because it reminded me of the
It's Batman Returns, right?
exactly, it's the kitty litter thing. Yeah,
And
that's what I was
yep,
going to.
that's what I thought you were gonna say. Okay, so I wanted to break all that down just to say, I think it was important to state it in making the point I made earlier that I buy her backstory every bit as much as Frank's in getting them to the same place, uh, and I love how different they are. And I love the inverse of family. But I wanted to ask you how you felt about the inconvenient, I guess I should say, timing, the sort of contrived timing of the breast cancer. Does that bother you, or does it work okay because of the way we talk about it? Because and obviously, coincidences happen. Don't get me wrong. So I'm not saying that it's inherently wrong, but I just was wondering if it bugged you at all, because I could see it bothering a person where she gets immediately after he dies, she gets breast cancer and blames him for it because she has almost like a superstition that like he
Yeah.
transferred his evil into her. Like, was that a bridge too far for you at all?
I think for me it works because for her to become the female Punisher, since she starts off as like a regular person, I think you kind of need layers on layers of like building to that. Whereas Frank Castle is, this military guy that kind of wants to do this already. So you have like a much smaller snap and then he goes. While
Yeah.
this kind of like normal woman who like talks about herself as just kind of like a regular housewife when she describes her backstory. And I think she kind of needs a much bigger like snapping point in order to become like the Punisher.
It's not enough that her husband is abusive to her, and also if
She
he
kind of has to
just
leave
dies, that's a good thing for her. And she
exactly.
talks about it like that. So then you take it even further. She gets breast cancer. She's already feeling less than human because she isn't feeling anything because when she tries to get together with men, she's just reminded of her husband, and then maybe from her perspective, she not just doesn't feel like as much like a person anymore. She doesn't feel as much like a woman anymore. Like maybe
Mhm.
maybe that there's a component of that to it as well.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think you kind of need her to be broken down in every way, the way that she is, in order for her to get there.
Yeah, because like Frank Castle at war is already broken down to a certain degree before anything even happens to his family.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Like in a way, him going to war is part of the trauma that builds to him being the Punisher.
I wasn't even thinking about that aspect of it. That's really important.
It's kind of like a Rambo type thing, right? Where he
Yep.
comes home and things kind of inherently to begin with are never going to be the same, and then you kind of add up to that with the death of his family, and then it's like, okay, now I have a target. Go.
Yeah, and you also have to make it such an unusual combination of traumas, or else this would be happening to a bunch of people.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, just everybody's becoming the Punisher, right?
Well, people sometimes lob that criticism at just the idea of Batman.
That he Oh, that like anybody should become that?
Yeah, it's just, well, here's a kid that saw his parents get murdered in front of him. Why doesn't every kid decide to put on a suit and go fight crime? And like his being rich and having the means has something to do with it, but that's not all the drive and determination.
Yeah. Yeah, and with DC, it's got more of that mythical edge to it.
Exactly. Yeah. So when we try to make it realistic, it's a little bit harder.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's not just specifically like, oh, this character, like it's more of like that mythology thing of like, oh, this person became like, this like demigod type character, and they had, their struggles.
Yeah, and also you have larger than life characters that you can see yourself in where there's a catharsis. Like, here's what you'd like to do because something horrible happened to you. Nobody's going to do that, but we're going to live in a fantasy.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's like, I
And
mean,
that's not what the Punisher is.
yeah, every superhero to an extent is a power fantasy. And that's what, like I said, I keep saying, with Ennis, like he gets that aspect of the Punisher in that he creates these really awful people and throws it out and like throws them at the Punisher, and that's where the power fantasy aspect of that character comes in, right? Like you see your kind, that couple at the beginning where it's like, man, like that really sucks. Like, yeah, like I kind of enjoy seeing the Punisher, deal with these people.
Yeah, and like I didn't have as much of the cathartic thing with it just because I was so bothered by it in the first place. From like, I get why Punisher is doing this.
Mm.
God, there's a part of me that wishes I could unsee what's happening here. Where like I
Yeah.
found myself. I don't want to get like too dark with this, but like I found myself considering. I don't know if I should even say this out loud. Like it just messed with my brain.
Yeah.
With the idea of if you'll permit an indulgence for a second, um the the couple that's making their very young children make pornographic films. Whenever I hear like people in the news who get arrested for child porn and stuff like that, I never permit myself, and I've never thought about this before. It's all subconscious, right? I never permit myself to consider what exactly is in the films or on the pictures. You know what I mean? It's always just taking pictures of like really young naked children is messed up, but like it never
Mm.
occurs to me what they're doing. And this doesn't get into it at all. It doesn't talk about it, but something about the Punisher feeling like this couple needs to die when they have children in their house immediately made my imagination run away with itself and go, God, what did they do to their children? And that really messed with my head because I've never let myself think about any of that before.
Yeah, like you kind of get too much of the detail, so it's like, oh man, like it kind of spells out a picture
Like, they're
in
not
just what
even
you're
really
seeing.
a lot of details in the thing. It was just the situation of it where you're
Yeah,
like,
no, exactly. Like the way they place things and how.
it was because it was a normal looking family,
Yeah,
which I think is thematically really important for the story.
yeah.
Like,
No, and they
here's
got.
this. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just like it's a very normal family, and then you get to their basement, and it's like a something out of Seven.
Yeah, like I never think about like young children's parents doing it to them. It's always like like an uncle or like a new stepfather or like a kidnapper. Like
Hmm.
it's something about that was so much worse to me.
Hmm. Yeah, that it was the parents.
Yeah. And
No,
it
for
just
sure.
resonates with you when you are a parent, you have young children and now daughters, you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I'm sure it still would have bothered me like a couple of years ago, but like now I also have female children and so it's even worse. Like I don't know.
No, and
I
that's
don't
the
want to
thing.
talk about this, but it came to me and then I felt like I need to talk about this. So anyway,
No, and that's the thing that sticks with me about the Slavers arc and why it's, I think, my favorite Punisher story and just one of my favorite comics of all time, where it like takes this very real thing and it just presents it, and it's like, look how
yeah.
like terrible this is, and specifically, and this carries through the book, which is just there's no happy endings for these people.
Yeah.
Like this horrible thing happens to them, and you don't get to go home after that. Like that sticks with you, that messes you up, and this while also picking up from aspects of that storyline, really, I think, is also in the same way a very good spiritual successor, in that you're still dealing with that kind of idea of like, yeah, no, this trauma like really destroys you.
And the idea that there are, because this is what Up is Down, Black and is White was so much about, the idea that there are sometimes no good answers for what to do about it, and there are like really haunting things that happen where you can't imagine that a person is capable of certain things, and just like the world can be that horrible and there's no explanation.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like the line
exactly.
here that feels like it's really building on that whole thing without actually going back and literally calling to it, where in his internal monologue, Punisher says, "Sometimes I'd like to get my hands on God," which sounds like a Miller line, but it really works in the context of this.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's a great line, and it's kind of reminiscent with the ending, where he's talking about how like he wishes that at the end of the day he could kill all of these people so that nobody else has to go through that.
Yeah. So I found myself at the end of this, sort of like I did in the last arc, wishing that Jenny had survived because I kind of want to read her exploits now. Like, she's such an interesting character to me. Like, I would read a Punisher series starring her. But the difference is she kind of has to go the way she does to make the story for Frank Castle work. And
Yeah,
so that's not a criticism of the story. It was a criticism when Catherine died. There was more to do with her potentially, I thought. And I didn't like that she was gone there because she was about to go off and maybe do something interesting, and I wanted to read about that, and then because I liked her character a lot too, and then that didn't happen. But with this, I was disappointed in all the right ways. You know what I mean? Like, this was
hmm.
the only way to do this.
You like you
But
just
there's
you
a
like
part of
this
me that
character, but you
wishes
want
somehow
more.
she could have continued on, but she can't continue on, and so it's
Yeah,
perfect. Like,
yeah, no, it's just you like this character, so you want more of it, and that's part of the tragedy of this ending.
well, I also think I like her more than Frank Castle. Like, I'm not a Punisher guy, and if this was the Punisher, I would care more. Is that wrong of me? Is that like
No,
blasphemous?
no, I mean that's understandable.
That's how I feel about it. I want to read about her. I want her to be the Punisher now. Like, and I never have that with anything where it's like, oh, let's pass the mantle to a woman and let her have a turn. But and not because she's a woman necessarily, but like I have that with this, where like and I never have that. Like, I actually kind of wish she was the Punisher. I don't want to read about that now.
Like 15 years later, if this were made in 616, she would become the Punisher, and that's when Frank would leave to become Cosmic Ghost Rider.
You know what though? Wouldn't this have been a fantastic Ultimate Punisher?
Yeah, especially because from what I remember, the Ultimate Universe doesn't really have a take on the Punisher. He's just kind of, hey, here's the
Just
Punisher.
like Daredevil, they don't have a take on him
Yeah,
either.
no, there's quite a few of those street level characters that they don't really have a take on, and it's just like, oh, okay, like here they are.
It's hard because at the same time Ultimate was getting going with Spider-Man, you had uh you had Marvel, what were they, Marvel Knights, just reinventing a lot of the street level characters, so it already kind of felt like their own version of Ultimate, even though it was 616 and it was just what they were doing in the mainstream, but it kind of read that way.
Yeah, I've never really thought about that, but yeah, I guess that Marvel Knight stuff just kind of takes away from doing the stuff in Ultimate, and
Because you'd be
that
reinventing them at the same time, and who wants to try to do a reinvention of Daredevil at the same time Bendis is doing Marvel Knights Daredevil?
mhm. Yeah, which is interesting
And also Ultimate Spider-Man.
because if you had done a Ultimate Punisher, it would have been interesting to deal with some of his rogues gallery because Punisher Max doesn't at all.
Yeah.
Uh, so that would
And
have
that's
been
what I loved about Jason Aaron when he comes in, because he makes it all about the Rogues Gallery and has the Punisher entirely in the background. I
yeah,
don't
that's all about
think.
Kingpin and Bullseye, right?
Yep. I gotta
That's one
say
of the
though,
few Punisher things you've read that I haven't is the Aaron
and I
run.
like that a lot, but I have to say, after reading this, I don't think I can any more say I prefer Aaron's over Ennis, because I think I like this as well or better than anything Aaron did. Once this puts it over the top. Once you have this and Up is Down and Slavers, because each of those on their own have a lot of merits, and I appreciate them, and I was glad I read them. But like I said, it didn't win me over in like a now I'm like into Punisher Max and wanting to keep reading it kind of way. This did that somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know because it's still a lot of this is not my sensibilities, but I really like it. I mean, like I have the same thing that you said you had with Slavers, where I don't know. This at least in the moment right now feels like one of the better arcs in comics I've read.
Hmm. Now we just got to read Barracuda because that's like the only thing in Max that becomes just a regular Rogues Gallery thing. So
Oh, interesting. Chewbacca's Lover, $2 super chat. Thoughts on Shauna? Any interesting character stuff? Yeah, we touched on her, but didn't really talk about her a whole lot.
yeah, she's just kind of the she's like the big tough one that you find out isn't really as like the big deal that she kind of makes herself out to be.
She's kind of a gun that's being pointed around by who's the older kid? I can't even remember her name now. We've been talking so long.
Annabella.
Annabella, thank you. I was like, it starts with an
Angelica
A.
Houston.
It starts with an A. It's not that, and it's 3 syllables, and I cannot remember what it is. Anyway, but Annabella, I should have written those down and put them in front of me, but I got real confident when we started because I just looked at this again. I was like, I know all 5 of these women's names, and I don't have to write them down. Annabella kind of points her in different directions as a gun, and then finds out that she is a gun that hired another gun that didn't also like do the job. One thing I wasn't real sure about with her is why on earth, after the hired gun that she gets in the first place, who she just gets because she was sleeping with him, so that was a mistake in the first place. But like, why on earth would you go to him again for anything? Especially when he's just high all the time. Like that made
Yeah.
her seem kind of more incompetent and just stupid than I think she was really supposed to be.
Well, and then it immediately blows up in their face again when the first thing he does is he takes a shot at Budiansky.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I guess the idea is just that like she's impulsive and she needs to look like the tough one.
Hmm.
Maybe in some way she's trying to live up to Annabella. In maybe.
Yeah, I hadn't really had that thought, but I guess yeah, I could see that because she's kind of the big strong like leader one, even though she can't do the same kind of shooting stuff that Shauna can. She has like that strength in a different way, and that she's just very commanding.
Yeah. Well, anything else you want to make sure that we mention? We're already an hour and a half, so we should probably go ahead and wrap things up here. I thought we'd be done with this in less than an hour, but the more we talked about it, the more interesting things I was finding myself landing on, and I really like it. It bothers me, and I won't sleep well, but I really like it.
Hmm. No,
Hardly,
I
hardly
like this
any
quite a bit.
complaints with this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What were you saying?
Oh, no, I was just saying, like, I agree. Like, this is a very good arc. I remember, like, as a teenager, it was always like, Widowmaker, that's the one where, like, I don't really get as much Punisher stuff. He just kind of disappears. But then, obviously, as you get older, it's like, no, but this is also just a really good story on its own.
Yeah, and like it has an atmosphere with all the cop stuff that I kind of gravitate toward, I suppose. Like I never thought of myself as like a big street level cop guy. And then I looked back at one point at like certain movies I like, but especially like things that I dig in comics, and I'm like, I guess this is a thing. Sort of like biopics. Like I guess I am a biopic guy. Like my favorite stuff when in Spawnier was the Sam and Twitch stuff, and Bendis of course is really good at that stuff.
This is the type of thing that's just very much missing in superhero adaptations at this point. Is cop stuff outside of Batman, because Batman obviously you have Gordon, so you kind of have to have that. But like police don't exist in the MCU at this point anymore.
That's
And
a
most of the other DC stuff.
Yeah, and the Netflix shows were filling that void, and now we don't have those anymore. And we'll see what they start doing with the street level characters when they bring in when they finally do their 18 episode Daredevil show. But
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Hopefully they bring some of that stuff back. I don't know.
hopefully
It's
that's
also
in arcs, like we were saying.
yeah, no, I just hope there's episodic stuff. I don't know. We did Moon Knight, who's a street level character, and then he fights a kaiju at the end. So Daredevil will probably also fight a kaiju.
Chewbacca's lover once again. Thanks a lot, man, for all the support tonight.
There's
Jason,
also, I don't know if you saw, but two other super chats
did I
earlier.
miss some? I'll
Yeah,
scroll up and find them. My apologies. Jason Aaron Punisher is the same continuity. It will read a lot better after this because it picks up a lot of the same themes and drives them forward. I wasn't sure if it was supposed to be in the same continuity, so I'm glad to know that.
yeah. Since I'd never read that, I was never too sure because obviously that brings in more comic booky stuff.
But
And I also think they retitle it because this is just like the Punisher, but it's under their Max line,
yes.
and then I think they retitle it to actually be Punisher Max
Well, and
when Aaron takes
Aaron's is
over.
Punisher Max, which gets confusing because people know this as the original Punisher Max. So if you go look this up to read it like in digital, you won't find it that way. This is Punisher Volume 7.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, that's one of the confusing things with some of the stuff is you have to find it by which volume it is.
And this also lasted a lot longer because Aaron's was just a maxi series. It was 12 issues long.
Hmm. Yeah, because I think the Punisher Max, because they did like the complete like
I
volume
think it
thing,
was
so they're
just
a bit
12.
longer than regular arcs or regular trades. And I think there was like four or five Ennis ones, and then just one Aaron one.
Yeah, they did these in bigger trades, I think,
Hmm.
where they've got. I don't know if they ever released this in just the singular arcs.
This, yes, because I used to have all of them.
Oh, did they really? Okay.
Yeah, and
Was it
then
like Bendis
it,
Daredevil? Because Bendis Daredevil also had those like bigger trade paperbacks that would have like 3 or 4 story arcs in them. But then I don't know if that because I have those, but I don't know if that was ever released in the smaller trades.
yeah, I don't know about his Daredevil, but this Punisher, they did do it story arc by story arc, and then they later on they released the ones that have like three or four.
Okay. I think Ultimate Spider-Man also did that. Bob the Hunt, $2
Yeah,
super chat. Sam and Twitch, written by Garth Ennis. He did Spawn. Yeah, I could see it. It would be
yeah.
interesting to contrast his sensibilities with Bendis's and what he would do with those characters and how much he would leave the supernatural stuff in the background like Bendis did. Like I'm not sure it wouldn't be really really similar.
Mhm. Yeah, that'd be interesting. I also want to read. I was really disappointed when I found out it was only one issue, but I want to read his Peacemaker he did last year.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe it was this year. I can't remember. But he did like a Peacemaker issue, and I'd like to see kind of how he handles that. Since I like Punisher
I
Max.
think he's one of those writers who famously doesn't like superheroes. And Sam and Twitch would be good for him because,
Yeah.
uh, it's not superhero, but it's in a superhero esque universe. But even Spawn himself is not a superhero, so it just seems like it would be a good fit for him. Bob the Hun, $2 super chat.
Well, and
Yeah,
we'll just going into that. Since you've never read Welcome Back, Frank, in Daredevil season 2, there's the episode where Daredevil's like chained to the roof
yeah,
where the Punisher's there. So that's taken from Welcome Back, Frank.
yep.
And
I've heard that.
yeah, and in that episode they
Didn't
make
I
it
read
much
that at some
more.
point? Maybe I've read that. I can't remember now.
Yeah, and in that show they make it much more like a battle of their two ideologies.
Right.
Well, in that book, it's basically the Punisher being like, "You're stupid," and then he's right, and then the book moves on.
Bob the Hunt put in another super chat. Also wrote a Batman miniseries, similar character. And I don't know if I've ever read that either. I just don't remember. It's been too long.
Yeah, I've never read his Batman. I didn't even know he did that. Obviously, because I know he doesn't like superhero stuff, with the exception of Superman, which is weird. Um, I've heard that Ennis is a big fan of Superman.
But I feel like Batman would be a thing that he would appreciate more because it's easy to write that not superhero.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure because you could say the same thing about Daredevil, but
Yeah,
like the Daredevil appearances in his Punisher are, hey, look at this loser.
maybe he doesn't like costumes, but then the Superman thing is weird.
Yeah, the Superman thing in general is just very weird.
Chewbacca Slover fight. Maybe that's just nostalgia or something.
Could
$5 super
be.
chat. Jason Aaron Punisher. Oh wait, he said that already. Pardon me. But he's got another one. Jason Aaron does real world Nolanized versions of Punisher's Rogues Gallery. I think I agree with that. It's still really grounded and doesn't go too crazy. Same tone and feel. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's any more or less like Nolanized than what Ennis is doing here. But I guess you just mean in its he's finally going to some more costume characters and things like that,
Hmm.
and making them putting them in a less heightened world than standard superhero comics. So like that's
Yeah.
true, sure.
Well, we've still
That
never
stuff I've
gotten to a
actually read.
place.
Chewbacca's Lover. I read that as it was coming out. I mean, it's been a long time, but I like that stuff a lot. Um,
Well, we've still never gotten to a place where we can just do
particularly the
Bullseye's
Kingpin
costume.
stuff. Yeah. Well, and I'm pretty sure that his bullseye still does the like bullseye indentation thing on his forehead.
Oh, does it? I think I've seen like covers and stuff where he's in the actual costume, but I didn't know he has the
In
in
Aaron's, I can't remember if he's in the costume or not.
I could be wrong about that. Since like I said, I've never read it,
I mean, me
but
too. It's been a
yeah,
decade, man. Like I don't, I read it as it came out, but
yeah. No,
I
for
read
some
those.
reason in adaptation we can just never do his costume. I
I
don't know why.
I would like to actually buy those singles at some point because I don't own those. I read those as I was, and I read a lot in digital now. But just because I like that book a lot, I'd like that. I'd like to have some of this now, just for my collection because it's good because I like it. Um,
Hmm. No,
particularly the three arcs I keep talking about.
well, I don't think any of the Max stuff is on Marvel Unlimited, but I could be wrong about that.
They didn't put Volume 7 in there at all.
I don't think so. I don't think any of just the Max line in general made it to Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah, I mean, I was just using a different source, but
Yeah.
yeah, I have looked for it there before and couldn't find it, but I thought it was just because I didn't know how to search for it because at the time I didn't understand where it fell in the volumes. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I think it's just like I don't know some weird thing there. I don't know what's going on.
but like you can probably find it on Comixology. I know some library sites have it and stuff, so like there's ways to find it. But
Oh, yeah, of course.
all right, well, folks, that's gonna do it for us tonight. Unless Austin, there's any other burning or brilliant notion you wanna throw out.
Uh, he needed to punch a polar bear in this.
Oh yeah, is that the reason that you don't put it quite as high as the slavers are?
Yeah, exactly.
Jenny is just not doing it for him. He's got to have a polar bear fight.
No, and like her backstory is like it's so like in your face. I'm like, okay, I got it. I got it. Boom. That was a better one.
I I don't know. I think we need a moment of silence for that joke. But anyway, well, once again, thanks a lot for joining us, guys. I'll be back again tomorrow night at 8 Central for another episode of The Captain Logan Show. No idea what the lead-in topic is yet because Thursday is usually crazy news happens. So I'm waiting to see what happens tomorrow before I choose tomorrow night's topic. We're moving things around a little bit. Originally, Austin and I were going to do a review Friday night, but I realized that that's my birthday and I'm doing things with my family, and I completely forgot about that. I spaced it. So Saturday, Austin has graciously offered to come back and do our other request this week because it's request month on, of all things, the South Park movie. That's what we're doing Saturdays, so
Yep.
look forward to that. And if you would like to make a request for TheReQuest, you can go to patreon.com/geekvolution. The $15 tier makes that possible. You can do it for just 1 month or hang on there and stay in the rotation. It is absolutely up to you. Just a one-time commitment puts you on the list. You don't have to stay there, but folks sometimes do that, and that's really super cool of them. So totally up to you how you want to handle it, but you can request a comic comic arc, you can request a movie, or you can request the first couple episodes of a TV show that we're not familiar with, or any episode of a show that we are. And we really appreciate you participating, anybody that has ever done that, and thanks to everybody watching live or after the fact. You guys are wonderful. And we will see you again real shortly. I was Captain Logan, and this was Austin, the Day Ghost.
Goodbye, everybody.
See you later, folks. Happy reading.